Postmodernism is a confusing concept which is formed around the idea of reality. There are 10 key concepts that form the idea: hyperreality, parody, simulacra, homage, intertextual references, fragmented narrative, bricolage, irony, and verisimilitude. The first component we're going to look at is hyperreality. This is when the audience can't tell the difference between what is reality and what is hyperreality. In other words, is it real or fake? An example of this is life on Mars.
The rest is anyone's guess. Because one minute I was in 2006, the next I'm in 1973. So the question now is, what happened?
By creating a hyperreal version of Manchester, the audience were able to see through the lens of millennial nostalgia. Is it what they remember? Is it better or is it worse? Questioning reality. Throughout Life on Mars, it's not just the audience that questions Sam Tyler's existence within the 1970s. When Tyler first enters the 1970s, he also questions everything, blurring the boundaries between what is real and what is fake. Parody, making fun of the original. An example of this is on Life on Mars, when they take inspiration from one of David Bowie's songs, Gene Genie, to create a character. The next component we're going to look at is simulacra. This is more or less when an artificial copy is created from a product. The consumers will either prefer a new version or the old version. For example, if you take an orange, this would have been the original version. However, when it's turned into orange juice, some people may prefer this. Which one is better? The original or the simulacra version? An example of this is The Bridge. After so much success, they decided to create a similar show called The Tunnel, between France and England. Another example of this within the case study is Life on Mars, when they recreated a Russian version, which was unique but had a similar storyline. However, both of these copies were not as successful as their original. A homage is when you copy things out of respect, which is the opposite of a parody. An example of this on Life on Mars is Gene Hunt taken from Gene Genie, a good police officer, and creating good nostalgia for the audience. An intertextual reference is when the director makes a subtle or obvious reference to another product. For example, in Life on Mars, they reference to The Wizard of Oz.
Hello, is that The Wizard of Oz? The wizard will sort it out. It's because of the wonderful things he does.
In Life on Mars, they also make references between the actors and the characters. For example, John Sim, who played Sam Tyler, also starred in Doctor Who, emphasising the idea of hyperreality.
Well, I went to see Doctor Who. He prescribed me some pills, so...
Cross-referencing. Time Lord, has he gone back in time? An extra component is self-reflectivity. This is when the characters are aware that they're being watched by an audience. An example of this is in Zoella, as she talks directly to the audience.
Heather said, if you could go back and change one thing that has happened to you, what would it be? I think this is quite a deep question.
Another component is fragmented narrative. This is when it has a non-linear structure. For example, flashbacks. This can be confusing for an audience to follow as there are lots of different narratives. For example, in The Bridge, there are lots of different narratives happening at once. Another component of postmodernism is the bricolage, when you put old products into a new product. For example, in Life on Mars, they are influenced by 1970 shows.
Oh dear, look at the state of her.
Where they reuse the same style. By doing this, they create nostalgia for an audience that remember the 1970s. Another example of this is shown in The Bridge, which is a Nordic noir. The Danish show Killing has similar themes to The Bridge. The next component is irony. This is not dramatic irony, however. It is the opposite of what the audience think is going to happen. For example, in Dizzy Rascal's Dream music video,
I'm not gonna pull this off, man, without signing docs. This is too sensible for me, man. How you gonna have a dream come true?
another key word to use when talking about postmodernism is verisimilitude, which is the amount of realism in a product. For example, in Zoella, is what we see true to what she's really like? How much of it do we believe?
Postmodernism.